The moment she slammed her hands on my front door, I knew it wasn't going to be a normal morning. "Arrest him!" she screamed so loud my neighbors peeked out, eyes wide. I stood on my own porch, gripping my coffee cup, thinking, she really thinks she can do this. Her son, leaning against her like he owned the street, smirked as if he'd already won. "You can't park here," she hissed, waving a laminated HOA notice like it was a sword. I laughed, almost spilling my coffee. "This is my property. You need to leave." But she didn't budge. Instead, she pulled out her phone and started dialing, whispering to him, "Call the cops. Make him pay." As she spoke, I noticed her hands shaking, not with fear, but with anger. She wasn't expecting me. You see, what she didn't know was that the uniform I had tucked away under the jacket in my truck wasn't just for show. And that little smirk on her son's face, that was about to vanish. By the time the fake officers arrived, I was already leaning casually against my truck, keys in hand, recording everything on my hidden dash cam. They didn't recognize me at first, the same officers who pull over criminals for a living, until I stepped forward, badge flashing. "Evening, gentlemen. She called you for what exactly?" Her face went pale. Her son's smirk faltered. The whole street was quiet now, waiting, watching. I took a slow breath, letting the tension build. "I didn't fight for this country to be told I can't park in my own driveway." She stumbled back, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline, eyes darting between me and the officers she'd summoned. I could hear her muttering, trying to convince them I was some criminal trespasser, but the moment they saw my badge, everything changed. One of the fake cops froze, whispering, Ma'am, is he—" She cut him off with a sharp, angry shake of her head, refusing to back down. Her son tried to step forward, acting tough, but I leaned on my truck, casually locking eyes with him. "You really think you can drive my truck without permission?" I said, voice calm but cold. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He hadn't counted on me being a former SWAT trainer with years of experience handling people like him. Suddenly, she lunged, grabbing my arm. "You can't do this. I'm the HOA. I shook her off gently but firmly. "You can yell all you want, but this is my land," I said. At that moment, my neighbor, who had been filming from their porch, shouted, "You're lying, that's his property." Her face turned red with fury. Then came the real twist. Her phone rang. She answered it with a trembling hand, and on the line was someone who had been quietly observing. The HOA lawyer she'd bragged about. Only this time, the lawyer wasn't siding with her. He reminded her that the notice she slapped on my door was invalid, that she had no authority to call law enforcement, and that impersonating officers could be criminal. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her son's eyes widened. Everyone on the street had stopped in their tracks, whispering to one another. And me? I just smiled, letting the weight of truth settle over the scene. "You tried to arrest me with fake cops, but I'm the real sheriff," I said softly, almost letting it sink in before walking back to my truck. The camera had caught everything, and in that silence, the first wave of justice had already begun. By the time I climbed into my truck, Karen was already fuming, pacing like a storm ready to burst. Her son hovered behind her, muttering something about revenge, but I didn't flinch. I started the engine slowly, letting the roar echo down the quiet street. That's when the twist hit. I noticed tire tracks leading from her side yard straight to my freshly planted garden. She'd tried to sabotage me while I was inside. I stepped out and pointed. "Care to explain these?" Her jaw dropped. I didn't—" I cut her off. "You know, destroying someone else's property is a lot worse than borrowing a truck without permission." She clenched her fists, shaking with rage. The neighbors were leaning out of windows now, murmuring, some filming on their phones. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Her son, trying to act brave, stepped toward me. "He's a liar. She has rights." I raised an eyebrow and tapped my badge. "Son, I am the law in this situation. Your rights stop at my driveway." That got a nervous laugh from a few onlookers while Karen's face turned crimson. But the real twist came when I pulled my phone from my pocket. The dash cam footage of her slapping that fake HOA notice on my door, screaming at me, trying to call the cops, all of it. was already live on the neighborhood security app. Within seconds, everyone could see her entitlement, her lies, and her false authority. The power she thought she had vanished in an instant. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I saw fear. This isn't over," she hissed. I just smiled and leaned against my truck. "Actually, it is. You can't fake power, Karen, not here." Karen's face twisted with fury as she realized the footage had gone viral through the neighborhood app. Her son looked panicked, muttering under his breath, "Mom, what do we do now?" But she wasn't ready to admit defeat. She stormed toward my truck again, but this time I wasn't standing idly. I stepped out, hands raised, letting the sun catch the badge pinned to my chest. "One more step, and it's trespassing," I said calmly. The neighbors were all watching now, some whispering, some recording. Karen froze, then took a half step back, realizing her theatrics were collapsing in real time. Then came the next twist. A tow truck rolled up, summoned earlier by one of her own fake complaints. Karen's plan had backfired. I smiled as the driver approached. "I'm not moving. This is my truck on my property." He looked at my badge, hesitated, and nodded. "Right. Didn't realize." The tension was electric, her scheme collapsing in layers right before her eyes. But she wasn't done. "I'm calling the police again," she shouted. I leaned on the truck, arms crossed. "Go ahead. Maybe next time bring the real ones." Her phone rang again. This time it was her HOA board member. They had seen the live footage too. "Karen, step down. This is getting out of control," the voice said firmly. She turned pale. Her son, desperate, grabbed her arm. "Mom, maybe we should just leave." But she shook him off, determination flickering in her eyes. That's when I realized this was her last desperate play, and I had one more secret left. I pulled out a folder from the truck's glove compartment, filled with property deeds, legal notices, and permits. "Everything here proves this land is mine," I said, holding it up so the camera caught every page. The street went silent. Karen's face was a mix of shock and disbelief, her power, her fake authority, collapsing with every page I flipped. And just as she opened her mouth to argue, my neighbor shouted, "That's the police chief!" Her son's knees went weak. The illusion was over. Karen's face was beet red, her chest heaving, but she wasn't ready to surrender. "You can't do this. I'm in charge here," she screamed, her voice cracking under the weight of panic. I stayed calm, stepping closer, letting the street witness her unraveling. "You were never in charge. You just like pretending," I said quietly, letting each word land like a hammer. Her son tried to act braver this time, stepping forward, but I caught his eye. "Touch anything again, and I'll arrest you for attempted theft," I said, letting the badge gleam in the sun. The color drained from his face. Suddenly, the camera on the neighborhood app showed every move, every lie, every fake claim. They were all caught. Karen's web of deceit was unraveling live. Then came the twist nobody saw coming. From behind, one of my old SWAT colleagues, who had been helping with neighborhood security, rolled up. "Need a hand, Chief?" he asked casually. But the implication was clear. Karen's fake authority wouldn't hold a chance. Her jaw dropped. She realized she was now completely surrounded by truth, proof, and real power. Trying one last desperate trick, she lunged toward my truck, screaming for her son to drive it away. I moved faster than she expected, blocking her path. "Step back, this ends now," I said. The neighbors gasped as the scene unfolded like a live-action drama. Her son froze, unsure what to do. And then the final twist of this section hit. Karen's HOA notice fluttered to the ground, revealing her forgery stamp and fake signature. Everyone could see it, and murmurs ran through the crowd. She had tried to play the law, but the law had shown up instead, complete with evidence, witnesses, and authority. I looked at her calmly, letting the tension hang for a moment. "You wanted power, but you forgot one thing. Truth always comes first." By now, a small crowd had gathered, phones raised, recording every second. Karen's face was twisted in disbelief, her voice breaking as she tried to shout over the murmurs. "This isn't fair. You can't do this. To me." I let her words hang in the air because fairness wasn't the issue. Truth was. Her son, shaking, whispered, "Mom, maybe we should just leave." She glared at him, but the tension was obvious. Her carefully built illusion of authority was crumbling. I turned to the crowd, holding up my badge and the folder of documents, letting everyone see the legal proof of ownership. Whispers turned into audible shock. "She's lying! Look at that!" someone shouted. Then came another twist. One of the neighbors, a local news blogger, stepped forward. "I'm live streaming this," she announced. Within minutes, hundreds were watching online as the story unfolded. Karen tried to grab her phone, but her son held her back, realizing their lies were now public. Karen attempted a final power move, dialing the real police, hoping to twist the story in her favor. I leaned back against my truck, arms crossed. "Go ahead. Tell them what? That you tried to fake cops and harass your neighbor?" Her hands shook, and she realized her argument had no ground. The shocking moment came when the real police arrived, not to arrest me but to investigate her claims. They looked at the footage, the forged HOA notice, and the chaos she had caused. One officer shook his head, muttering, "This is illegal." Karen's mouth opened, then closed. Her plan to intimidate had backfired completely, and right there in front of the whole street, the first real taste of justice landed. Her power was exposed, her lies documented, and the entire neighborhood had seen it. I didn't say a word, just let the silence and the cameras speak for me. Karen's face was pale, her hands trembling as she realized the full scale of her defeat. The crowd was silent, cameras focused, every neighbor watching her unravel in real time. Her son clung to her arm, now more terrified of her wrath than mine. I stepped forward, calm but firm. "You tried to rule a street that isn't yours. Now the truth has ruled." The real twist hit when the police officer approached, holding a copy of the HOA regulations. "Ma'am, this notice is completely invalid. Forging authority and calling fake cops is a criminal offense." Karen's jaw dropped. Her son stammered, "Mom, I told you." But she shook him off, desperate to save face. Then, the final public humiliation. One neighbor projected the live stream footage onto a garage door for everyone to see. The crowd gasped as Karen's fake authority, her yelling, and her attempt to intimidate me played on repeat. Even the local news crew, who had arrived after seeing the viral clips, began recording her reaction. Every smirk, every lie she tried to throw out, it all collapsed at once. Karen tried one last desperate move, lunging for her phone to delete evidence, but I calmly stepped between her and the device. "All done?" I said softly. The police officer nodded, taking her aside to issue a citation. Her son's eyes widened. The realization hit. Her power was gone, and now she faced consequences for every move she'd made. I turned back to the crowd, letting the moment sink in. The thrill of public justice was palpable. I didn't need to gloat. The footage, the witnesses, and the law had done it all. "I didn't fight for this country to be told I can't protect my property," I said, letting the words echo down the street. And in that moment, the community understood. Karen's reign of fake power was over, and truth had won. The street was quiet now, the tension finally lifting. Karen had been escorted away by the police, her son trailing behind, pale and defeated. Neighbors were clapping softly, some still filming, others hugging each other. For a moment it felt like time had paused, like the neighborhood itself was taking a breath after the storm. I leaned against my truck, looking at the folder of documents one last time. Everything that mattered, proof of ownership, dash cam footage, witnesses, was in order. My family joined me, and my wife smiled, a mixture of relief and pride. "You handled it," she said quietly, wrapping an arm around me. I nodded, letting the adrenaline finally fade. Then came the last twist, unexpected but satisfying. One of the neighbors handed me a note, trembling. It was from the HOA board, apologizing for Karen's actions, promising formal changes, and acknowledging my legal ownership. The very organization Karen had tried to manipulate was now on my side. The irony was almost poetic. I looked around at the street, neighbors talking, children playing, and a sense of safety returning. It wasn't just about my truck or my property anymore. It was about justice, community, and the truth prevailing, and for the first time that morning, Karen's chaos felt truly contained. I took a deep breath, letting the moment settle. I didn't fight for this country to be told I can't protect my land, my family, and my neighbors, I said aloud, watching the sunset reflect off the truck. For the people who watched, it wasn't just a victory. It was proof that integrity, courage, and law always win, even against the loudest, most entitled voices. The street would remember this day. Karen had tried to rule it, but justice and a little patience had shown her the real power belongs to those who respect it.